The visible loss of control in the Channel is undermining one of the Conservative Party's big accomplishments over the past few years, which was people did feel, after the withdrawal from the European Union, that the government was in control. And now every boat that comes across visibly undermines that sense of control, and it will be potentially politically very dangerous for the government. The challenge facing the Prime Minister is that there aren't actually easy answers to this. It's very easy to talk tough. We've had Home Secretary after Home Secretary talking tough.
Endlessly.
But the actual structural challenges to effective policy, are you going to withdraw from the European Convention of Human Rights?
Yeah.
If you're not going to withdraw from the Human Convention, and let's be clear, this proposal to simply change the Human Rights Act into a bill with a new name, legally speaking, is pretty meaningless, then all of these legal challenges are going to remain, and you're not going to be able to do anything about that. So the government, I think, has fallen into a problem where they talk really tough, they get public expectations up.
Overpromise and underdeliver.
Overpromise and underdeliver time again. And it corrodes, it's not just that they fail on the policy, but they corrode broader public trust in government at the same time.
No, I agree with that. Just quickly, I mean, of your Con Home active subscribers, if you put to them the question, should we leave ECHR, what would you estimate the response would be?
I imagine you might get a majority in favour. Most of the, I wouldn't know for certain.
Sure.
It would potentially be quite a narrow majority because our panel is quite split. I think the question is, what do you do when you leave? Because the ECHR, you could, for example, simply transpose the ECHR into British law, so all of the rights exist, but they exist as acts of Parliament, and on that basis, without an appeal to a foreign court. So it would depend on the exact mechanism, but I think you'd probably have a majority at this point.
I think you probably would too. Now, over the weekend, Michael Gove, who'd kept pretty quiet for a few weeks, unlike him, comes out with an article in yesterday's Sunday papers, really quite dismissive of Liz Truss. Is this blue on blue because Rishi's responding? By the way, I heard today that Rishi's going to stand up for the motorist. I'd never heard that from him before. Had you?
No. One of the amusing things about Rishi's campaign is that since he's fallen behind, he's suddenly discovered, he's not going to die wondering, and so he's coming out with all of these policies, which I suspect, if Rishi had been the front runner, we would not have heard from him in a million years. So.
Blue on blue, Henry. Blue on blue. Is it doing the party harm?
Of course it is. Of course it is. Fundamentally, this is an internal Conservative Party contest, and historically this would have been resolved by MPs. You could have maybe had a short membership round at the end, 2 weeks, in and out, get it done.
Yeah.
Instead, we're having effectively an internal contest, but it's being conducted as a public contest. There are televised hustings, there are televised...
GBNews did one on Friday.
GBNews did one on Friday. There were televised leadership debates, there's your op-eds and everything else, and the whole structure incentivises people who have been members of the government for years to attack both each other and the government's record. Now, I'm a Conservative Party member and supporter, and I don't come away from this leadership contest feeling particularly optimistic. If you're an ordinary voter, I dread to think the impression you're getting of the party.
Well, and maybe we saw a little bit of that in today's Times, suggesting that Boris is now more popular as leader than the other two added up together.
Yes, I mean, this is slightly dismaying because, of course, I think people need to remember there was a reason that Boris Johnson left. Everyone was rightly very angry at him. He lost the confidence of his cabinet. But this is what happens when people leave office. It's remarkable it's happening so quickly. But you think we get Gordon Brown on our screens now as a respected elder statesman. Sir John Major is now back as a national favourite. Neither of those men.
Here, he's not.
No, not here. But neither of those men in their time in office were viewed that way. And I suspect the same thing will happen with Boris Johnson. Over time, people will be like, oh, well, if only we'd had Boris. But the important thing to remember is he's had an overall majority, a big overall majority for more than 2 years, and he's failed to deliver what he promised to deliver. That's on him.
No, I think that's right. And just, final thought, we've got 2 more weeks of this.
I know, it's a bit of a death march, isn't it? What they should have done, in retrospect, is there should have been a longer MP round so that MPs could spend more time winnowing down the candidates. Might have given someone like Kevin Badenoch more time to come through. And then the member round, which Conservative Home supports, should have been a final, decisive 2-week campaign.
Henry Hill, thank you for coming in and joining us. They can't even run their own party. They're supposed to run the country. Goodness only knows.